She was just trying to save her mother's life. One stolen wallet, $800. But hidden inside was a 10-year-old photograph of her mother, carried by a stranger who had no idea he had a daughter. What happens next will leave you speechless. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The rain pounded against the cracked window as 10-year-old Maya sat beside her mother's bed, watching Sarah's chest rise and fall with labored breaths. The small apartment felt even smaller tonight, the walls closing in with each passing hour. "Mama, please drink some water," Maya whispered, holding a chipped glass to her mother's pale lips. Sarah's eyes fluttered open, clouded with pain. "My sweet girl," she managed weakly. "You should be in school, not here taking care of me." Maya's throat tightened. She hadn't been to school in 3 months, not since the doctor's devastating words echoed through their lives: advanced liver disease. She needs immediate treatment. The cost will be around $30,000. $30,000. It might as well have been 30 million. Every morning, Maya woke before dawn, filling her small basket with packets of gum, candies, and handkerchiefs. She walked the busy streets, her voice growing hoarse from calling out to indifferent passers-by. On good days, she made $8. On bad days, barely $3. The tin box under her mother's bed held $147. 3 months of work, and she wasn't even close. Today, desperation had driven Maya to the wealthy business district, where glass towers scraped the sky and people wore suits that cost more than her entire year's earnings. She stood on the corner, invisible to the rushing crowds, when a sleek black car pulled up. A driver opened the door, and a tall man emerged, silver-streaked hair, expensive suit, confident stride. He paused to check his phone, and Maya's breath caught. His wallet, brown leather, thick with bills, jutting slightly from his jacket pocket. Maya's heart hammered. Mama always taught her that stealing was wrong, no matter the circumstance. But Mama was dying. The doctor said weeks, maybe a month without treatment. Before fear could stop her, Maya darted forward. She collided with the man, her small hands quick and practiced from months of survival on the streets. "Oh!" The man stumbled slightly. "Sorry, mister," Maya gasped, already turning to run. "Wait!" His voice called behind her, but Maya was gone, weaving through the crowd, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. She didn't stop running until she reached an alley 6 blocks away. Gasping for breath, hands trembling, she opened the wallet. $800 in crisp bills stared back at her. Maya's eyes filled with tears. It still wasn't enough for the full treatment, but it could buy her mother more time. It could pay for medicine, for another week in the hospital. Then she saw it, tucked in a small pocket, a photograph, worn at the edges like someone had looked at it countless times. The woman in the picture wore a yellow sundress, sitting on a park bench, smiling at the camera with a wave. Maya's blood turned to ice. That woman was her mother. Younger, healthier, radiantly happy, but unmistakably Sarah. She flipped the photo over. Written in neat handwriting: "Sarah, the day we met. I'll never forget you." Maya stared at the business card in the wallet. Richard Carter, CEO, Carter Industries. Her mind raced with impossible questions. Who was this man? How did he know her mother? And why, after all these years, did he still carry her photograph? Maya barely slept that night. She lay on her thin mattress, the wallet beside her like a burning coal. The photograph haunted her thoughts, her mother's young, joyful face, so different from the tired, pain-filled woman fighting for life in the hospital. At dawn, Maya made her decision. She would return the wallet. She would face this Richard Carter and demand answers. After visiting her mother and paying $200 toward the hospital bill, Maya took the bus to the address on the business card. The Carter Industries building loomed before her, all gleaming glass and polished steel, Inside, the marble lobby made her feel impossibly small. Her worn sandals squeaked against the pristine floor as she approached the security desk. "I need to see Mr. Richard Carter," Maya said, trying to sound braver than she felt. The guard looked down at her, surprised. "Do you have an appointment, young lady?" "No, but I have something that belongs to him." Maya pulled out the wallet. The guard's eyes widened. He picked up his phone, spoke quietly, then nodded. "Top floor, office 512. The elevator ride felt eternal. Maya's reflection stared back at her. A small girl in a faded dress, clutching a stolen wallet, about to confront a powerful stranger who might hold the key to her entire existence. The receptionist, a kind-faced woman named Mrs. Chen, led her to a massive door. "Mr. Carter's expecting you." Maya stepped inside. The office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Behind an imposing desk sat Richard Carter. He looked different up close, older, with tired eyes that held deep sadness despite his wealth. "You're the girl from yesterday," Richard said, studying her carefully. "Please, sit down." Maya perched on the edge of a leather chair. "I didn't find your wallet, sir. I stole it." Richard's eyebrows rose, but he remained calm. "Why?" The story poured out. Her mother's illness, the impossible medical bills, 3 months of desperate work on the streets. Maya's voice broke as she spoke, tears streaming down her face. "I know it was wrong. I'm so sorry. But my mama is all I have, and she's dying, and I—" Maya couldn't continue. Richard handed her a tissue, his expression unreadable. "Your mother. What's her name?" "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell." Richard went very still. The color drained from his face. "Mitchell?" Maya nodded, then slowly pulled out the photograph. "This was in your wallet. That's my mama from a long time ago." Richard's hands trembled as he took the photograph. He stared at it, and tears began rolling down his cheeks. Tears from a man who looked like he never cried. "Sarah," he whispered. "Oh God, Sarah. How do you know her?" Maya asked, her voice barely audible. Richard looked up at Maya, really looked at her for the first time. He studied her eyes, her face, the shape of her features. His expression shifted from shock to realization to something that looked like grief and wonder mixed together. "When is your birthday, Maya?" he asked hoarsely. "March 18th. I just turned 10. Richard did the math in his head. His face crumpled. 10 years ago, Sarah disappeared. March would be 9 months after. He stood abruptly, walked to the window, then turned back to face her. "Maya, I think," his voice broke, "I think I'm your father." The words hung in the air like thunder. Maya stared at Richard, her world tilting on its axis. "My father?" she whispered. Richard sank into his chair, covering his face with his hands. "I need to see Sarah. Right now. Which hospital?" 20 minutes later, they stood outside room 304 at City General Hospital. Richard's confidence had vanished, replaced by the nervousness of a man about to face his past. Maya pushed open the door. "Mama? I brought someone." Sarah turned her head, and when she saw Richard, her face went from confusion to recognition to pure horror. "No," the word came out strangled. "No, you can't be here. Get out. Sarah, please." Richard stepped forward. "Get away from my daughter." Sarah tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "Maya, come here. Away from him." "Mama, wait," Maya said softly. "He knows. About me. About everything." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Maya, then at Richard, and something inside her seemed to break. "How did you find us?" Richard held up the photograph with shaking hands. "I never stopped carrying this. 10 years, Sarah. 10 years I've wondered where you went. You have no right," Sarah began, but her voice cracked. "I know," Richard said quietly. "I know I don't. But please, let me explain. Let me tell Maya the truth she deserves to know." Sarah looked at her daughter's pleading face and nodded weakly. Richard sat down slowly, as if his legs might give out. 10 years ago, I was a different man. I was married, Maya. My wife, Elizabeth, was dying of cancer. I couldn't handle the pain, so I ran. I threw myself into work, traveled constantly. He paused, his voice thick with regret. That's when I met your mother. She worked at a textile market, and she was like sunlight breaking through darkness. Her smile, her strength, her kindness. I fell in love with her. But you lied to me, Sarah said bitterly. You told me you were single. You let me believe we had a future. I did, Richard admitted, shame coloring his face. I lied because I was a coward. Because being with you made me forget my pain. And I was selfish enough to take that happiness even though it wasn't mine to take. Sarah turned her face away, tears sliding down her cheeks. When did you find out? Maya asked her mother softly. I saw them together, Sarah whispered. At a restaurant. He was with his wife, holding her hand, kissing her forehead. I was going to tell him I was pregnant that day. She laughed bitterly. Instead, I disappeared. I changed my number, moved across the city. I couldn't be the woman who trapped a married man with a baby. Richard's voice broke. I searched for you. For months I searched. My wife died 6 months later, and all I wanted was to find you, to apologize, to make things right. But you were gone. I raised Maya alone, Sarah said firmly. I worked 2 jobs. I bought us an apartment. She never went hungry, never felt unloved. We didn't need you. Until I got sick, Maya said quietly. Sarah closed her eyes. Until I got sick. Richard stood, his face determined despite his tears. Sarah, I can't change the past. I can't give back those 10 years. But I can help now. Let me pay for your treatment. Let me save your life. Not for me, for Maya. She shouldn't lose her mother because of my mistakes. Sarah stared at Richard for a long moment, pride warring with reality. Finally, she looked at Maya's hopeful face and her resistance crumbled. For Maya, she whispered. Only for Maya. And I'll pay back every penny. That's not necessary, Richard began. It is to me, Sarah interrupted firmly. I won't be in your debt. Within hours, Richard had transferred $50,000 to the hospital. Dr. Patel, Sarah's physician, immediately began aggressive treatment. The best specialists were consulted, new medications administered, and for the first time in months, there was real hope. Mrs. Mitchell, with this level of care, your prognosis is excellent, Dr. Patel said, reviewing her charts a week later. The treatment is working better than expected. Maya visited every day after school. Yes, school. Richard had enrolled her in Riverside Academy, one of the city's finest schools. She had new uniforms, books, and a backpack without holes. At first, she felt out of place among the wealthy students, but her intelligence and determination soon earned respect. Richard visited the hospital too, though his meetings with Sarah were tense and brief. They communicated through polite updates about Maya, 2 people bound by their daughter but separated by old wounds. One Saturday, Richard took Maya to the park. They sat on a bench, the same bench from the photograph, and he taught her to fly a kite. Can I ask you something? Maya said, watching the kite dance against the blue sky. Anything. Do you wish things were different? That you'd known about me from the beginning? Richard's eyes filled with tears. Every single day, Maya. I missed your first steps, your first words, your first day of school. I missed everything. But I'm here now, and I promise you, I'll never miss another important moment. 3 months later, Sarah was discharged from the hospital, healthy and strong. She'd gained weight, her skin glowed, and her eyes sparkled with life again. She returned to work at the textile market, but only part-time. Richard had insisted on monthly support payments, not charity, but proper child support for Maya. Sarah's pride could accept that. A cautious routine emerged. Maya lived with Sarah during the week in their small apartment. On weekends, she stayed with Richard in his spacious house, where he'd prepared a beautiful room just for her. Slowly, painfully, Sarah and Richard learned to co-parent. They attended Maya's school events together, sitting with a polite distance between them. The romantic love was gone, buried under too much hurt, but a mutual respect began to grow, built on their shared love for their daughter. 1 year after Maya had stolen that wallet, the three of them gathered for her 11th birthday party at Riverside Park. Friends from school ran around laughing, and neighbors from Sarah's building mingled with Richard's colleagues. Maya stood between her parents as they sang happy birthday. She looked at her mother, healthy and smiling, then at her father, who'd become a constant loving presence in her life. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Sarah said. Maya closed her eyes, but didn't wish for anything. She had everything she needed. She'd started as a desperate thief, stealing a wallet to save her mother's life. Instead, she'd found her father, healed old wounds, and built a family from broken pieces. Sometimes, Maya realized, the worst mistakes can lead to the best miracles. And love, though complicated and imperfect, always finds a way.